Hello and welcome to On the Way Moments, a podcast from St. Anthony on the Desert Episcopal Church here in very warm today, humid, Scottsdale, Arizona. On this podcast, we have the privilege of hearing some great stories of people from their on the way moments in life, experiences that have shifted their life. I'm Will Strong. I'm your host today. And on today's episode, we have a very wonderful guest. A lot of you know him, but this is Father Bruce Jackson. Father Jackson, I'm sorry. We are so happy to have you here today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pleased to be here.
Yeah. So Father Jackson is the interim rector, and he's been here 7 months and just done some great stuff. And we're very privileged to have him as our interim and all that good stuff. So why don't you just start by telling us a little about your background?
Oh, my goodness. Starting from childhood?
You can start.
I grew up in a family of 5 children. I was the oldest. My father was in and out of our life. My grandmother actually ran the family. I was very much involved in the African American Baptist Church as a kid. Nice. In fact, everyone thought I was going to be a minister. But I got to high school and became a 3-sport athlete. Young ladies started thinking I was good looking, and I went in a different direction. The Lord always stayed with me, though. Yeah. And by the time I was middle-aged, he slapped me upside my head and said, "Didn't I tell you a long time ago what I wanted you to do?" I actually went to the University of Connecticut on a football scholarship. Was there 5 years. Actually got drafted into the NFL, but that didn't work. I was a defensive back. I worked for 3 years for the state of Connecticut Department of Corrections. I became the youngest assistant warden in the country many years ago. And I got a fellowship to go to St. John's University School of Law. I got a Martin Luther King fellowship, full ride. And I practiced law for almost 20 years and started a law firm that I had a bunch of firsts. I was one of the first of 2 African-American associates in the biggest firm in New York, Skadden Arps. Eventually, after a couple of big firms, I started my own practice, and it grew. A friend of mine, we joined forces, formed a firm called Jackson and Consimano, and it grew to be the largest minority-led firm in New York State. Wow. We, at one point, had 8 partners and about 40 associate lawyers and about 75, 80 employees. Wow. My dear wife, Barbara, though, was never happy with it, even as I found one thing. Every time you think a certain amount of money makes you happy, it just brings other issues. Yeah. So I was making a ton of money. I won't even tell you how much, but we're talking low 7 figures. Wow. Was not happy. She was not happy. She got me back into church. Okay. I started doing some reading and thinking again, and I started doing something called the Fellowship of Christians and Jews for the Homeless in New York. And there were a bunch of ministers in there, and they kind of thought I was one at first. And one of them asked me, they used to have these services on Saturdays, asked me with the homeless guys, asked me if I would fill in for them and preach once. And I had already been studying homiletics on my own, which is preaching. Yeah. I started taking some courses at Union Theological, which is an Episcopal seminary. And a couple of times I preached there, and a couple of the ministers came to me and said, "That's pretty good." And one of them, a Black Baptist minister, said to me, "I think you ought to consider, you're making a lot of money," but he was right. After a while, I started taking more courses. I actually took some courses at Yeshiva in Hebrew and to understand Judaism, which is the foundation of what we believe. And at some point in my studies, I decided I'm not happy anymore. And our oldest son, Matthew, was on his way to college at Brown. The youngest son was already gone. And I decided, "Barb, I need to get into ministry." She said, "I know." I said, "We're going to lose a lot of money. well, I'll make some when I sell the practice.
Right.
She said, I don't care. So we had a 4-bedroom co-op, a penthouse floor on the Upper West Side. We had a 4-acre house in northern Dutchess County to get away. I told my partners I'm ready to go, and they thought I was crazy.
Wow.
Of course, I did end up leaving for 10 cents on the dollar. We wanted to move somewhere warm. We'd been out here a number of times, and so we decided to come here, continue my studies. And finally, I ended up as a minister in a Lutheran church,
Okay.
Resurrection Lutheran Church. Before that, the interesting story, I represented the Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh my goodness, you've done it all.
Yeah, when I was a lawyer. If you don't mind, I have a story about it.
I love it. No, share, yeah.
When I was a junior in high school, I was kind of you can't tell now, but I was a hotshot basketball player, I thought. And one of my mother's cousins, Alvin Clinkscales, was on the Globetrotters. And he heard me talking about how I thought I was a real good basketball player. I was tearing up playgrounds and summer leagues.
Nice.
So one day he brought a fellow named Meadowlark Lemon to watch me play in this tournament. And he told me, I want to bring Meadowlark to check you out. And I scored about 40 points. I thought I'd really done it in. And afterward, Meadowlark said, I hear you're a pretty good football player. He said, stick with that. So he was right. You know, the next year I averaged about 16 points in high school, but I was second team All-State football player. But anyway, so we moved here. When I first came here, I wanted to take a year off before getting back into ministry. The owner of the Globetrotters, a fellow named Manny Jackson, who I represented them, got in touch with me and said, hey, what's this? I hear there's new partners in your firm taking over. Yeah. He said, why don't you come join me? I said, why? He said, I need somebody to be executive vice president and that. I said, no, I'm really going to go into ministry and blah, 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 blah. Well, one day he called my wife and told her, I'm offering your damn husband $500,000, new car.
Right.
He turned me down, and she said to me when I came home, you know, I just talked to Manny for a year or so. That's not a bad idea. You're spending a lot of money playing golf. So I'm kind of upset at him for calling. So I decided yes. So I was executive vice president of Harlem Globetrotters for almost 2 years, but it wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
And there were things there that it just was ugly. So I left there and became executive director of something called VICAP Faith in Action, Volunteer Interfaith Caregivers Program. It was a bunch of ministers and other people, and we did some ministry with people who were homebound, the elderly. I led that for a couple years, and then Resurrection Lutheran Church called me. So I spent 4 or 5 years there.
Okay.
There were 3 ministers. There was a senior pastor and me and another fellow. But the ELCA, the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, was going through what the Episcopal Church had just finished going through.
Yeah.
Whether or not gay people are God's children.
Right.
And of course, we know what side I was on, but the senior pastor wasn't in agreement, so we were battling. One day, my youth pastor, his name is Ken Katona, who's now
Isn't he
Episcopal priest up in California. He came to me and said, boss, I'd like you to do something for me. I knew when I had hired him. He said, look, one day I want to be an Episcopal priest. I said, fine. After about a year or two, he said, I think I'm ready to do that. Would you head my discernment committee? I said, I certainly would be honored to. He was a good guy. So the diocese sent this fellow to meet with me to go over what was part of it. He apparently went back and told the bishop, this is a great black guy out there we need to grab. Next thing I know, I have Bishop Smith calls me up. He was our presiding bishop. And he said, I'd like to meet with you and have lunch and talk to you about some things. I said, well, what do you want to talk to me about? He said, maybe coming around to the Episcopal Church. So I went down and met with him. And I met with him. It was fine. Then I got in what we could call a piss fight with the senior pastor of Resurrection, because he gave a sermon in which he talked about how God doesn't like gay marriage. So we had a little battle, and then I called up Bishop Smith and said, what do you have in mind? He said, well, I got a group of people who are already ministers in other polities that are coming over, and we're meeting every Saturday to transfer into the Episcopal Church. And I said, okay. I go to the meeting, and one of the guys there was the guy that came to me and told Bishop Smith about me. And there were Baptist ministers and Methodist ministers. It was about a group of about 10 of us.
Okay.
And we were, Dean Knisley, who's now the Bishop of Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
He was the dean of the cathedral. He ran the course with Bishop Smith. And after the course, Bishop Smith decided to ordain me.
Wow.
And I took a call to St. John's Episcopal in Glendale, where I stayed for 10 years.
Yeah.
Until I reached that magic age where they say, you're useless. I know good black don't crack, but it's not working here.
It's not working here.
So last year I hit 72. And
that's the age?
yeah, and the African-American version of the Episcopal Church, the AME, they were talking to me about coming over there. And, our bishop, she called me up. Actually, the Canon to the Ordinary said, Bishop Redall wants to know if you'd like to continue your ministry. I go, yeah, I'm going to.
I'm going to.
And she mentioned there's a church in Scottsdale, and you've been in Scottsdale for years before, even though I now lived in Glendale. And I said, well, what church is that? And they mentioned this one. So I looked them up. I said, pretty place. Look like nice white people, like I have here. Okay. I said, send me the materials. He sent me the materials. I said, okay, we'll follow through. I interviewed with your great senior warden, Dan Austin.
Absolutely.
And Claudia, the junior warden. And I kind of liked them. We liked each other. I said, well, let's keep talking. And we kept talking, and then we said, let's do this.
Nice.
So I'm here. And let me tell you, I wish I had hit this earlier. This is a great church with great people. I don't think the people here realize what they have. They've got a great group here that just needs to grow. And it's one of the best kept secrets in this diocese. And you got a beautiful facility, great people. I've never had a ministry that was this easy to do. Not that it's easy,
right.
But you've got people that I'm used to in both the Lutheran and my former Episcopal polity. As the minister, having to like monitor people, watch every ministry. You don't have to do that here.
Yeah.
It's a really fine place. I like to tell people, I keep waiting. It's 7 months. I haven't run into that knucklehead member yet. I know it's bound to happen.
It's bound to happen.
Anyway, that's
that's it's interesting you bring that up, especially about St. Anthony, because I was here from 2012 to 2015.
Yes.
I left, and you brought me back on as the youth director, and I agree. Like, I've been in other places, been in other churches, and great churches, great people, but there's just something about this, about St. Anthony for me. The moment I first walked in 2012, I just remember that feeling of, this is home. For me. It was, and the people, like you said, so I can attest to that as well, and I know several of our members can as well.
The next priest is going to get into something here she is not ready for in terms of the pleasure of working here.
Well, that's good. I like that. Yeah. So kind of thinking about St. Anthony, what would you consider some of your greatest joys here?
The people.
The people. Yeah.
The people. And I'll tell you something. Every time I walk into that sanctuary, something comes over me. It's the way a sanctuary is supposed to be. It's just, and I've seen lots of them.
Right.
The first time I saw this one, I thought, my goodness. I brought my wife out. She goes, oh, my goodness, what a sanctuary. Yeah. There's a sense of, this is where God is, and it's peaceful and pretty. Whoever designed this sanctuary was marvelous.
He did a great job.
Just great, and the people. And churches are the people, and the people here are ministry focused. I think they really get it. Which
I have to say, I've listened to your sermons every Sunday, and when you're done, I just want to shout amen. It's just literally.
That's in the Baptist church.
I know, right? I'm like, amen. I grew up in that. I was like, amen. No. Okay, we'll just quietly say it to myself.
I'll tell you, at St. John's, every now and then, about once a year in my 10 years, they'd start clapping. And then they'd stop whoa, we're Episcopalians. What are we doing?
Yes, amen. No,
brothers infected us,
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Oh, man. So in your time here, what are some of your hopes for St. Anthony that you would?
My hope sort of, after I was here about a month, were to bring a youth pastor in. And the vestry said yes. And then Jill came to me, who's our minister for evangelism, who's wonderful, and mentioned you. My hopes are to grow get children's ministry and youth ministry on solid footings. My next hope is to get some more ministry work development. We have some fine ministries that I'm learning about here. In fact, I put them in a sermon 2 weeks ago. To get those ministries feeling as if post-COVID we still have a role. And essentially just get this place ready for someone to just come in after me with not a whole lot necessary on their plate from the past, and they can start fresh.
You can just jump right in. Absolutely. So, kind of thing, you mentioned COVID. How, and from a priest standpoint, how is that?
Oh, it was awful when it first happened. My first service at St. John's, when we shut down, we started only doing services online, video, and it was just my deacon and me. And after the first service, I felt maybe I need to quit. There were no people. There was no connection. It didn't feel like a church. And I told my deacon, I'm not sure I can continue doing this. And he was cool. He said, well, I kind of feel the same way. He said, but my wife said to me, you can't stop. And so my wife said the same thing to me. And then God never talks to me out loud, but he gets on my nerves quietly. And he said, nah. And the odd thing is, after a number of months, I got so used to coming into this empty sanctuary with just a video person and me and the deacon, I got really used to that. So when we had attendance again, I was thinking, do I know how to do this again? These people look scary. But that from a priest standpoint, it was sort of mentally debilitating. And it still affects me. We have to wear masks, and people have to be, there's no longer community. And I don't do the wine right now. I think some priests are still doing it. I just don't want to risk people. I like the common cup, but I don't think we're ready for that. COVID has changed. I'm not sure what the church post-COVID is going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to see if you had an idea.
Well, a lot of people have gotten used to worshiping online.
Absolutely. We're still running our services.
Yeah, and I'm not sure Jesus built these churches for people who sit in their pajamas and worship. So
true.
I think we have to find a way to bring them back in.
There's a great article out there about hybrid church and how do we do church post-COVID, post-pandemic now, and then one of the things is how do we bring people back, and it's just I know that's similar with youth ministry. That's how do we light that fire again?
Yes,
it's easy to fall out of that habit. Once you're like, oh, I haven't gone to church in 6 months,
and youth ministry has a different challenge that started happening a few years ago with the rise of social media.
Absolutely.
At St. John's, my youth pastor, who'd been with me for 8-9 years, he ended up leaving because he said the kids now want to communicate on their phones. And it gets a little harder. They don't want to join anymore. They want to rather do it online or on the phone. So I think that's even a more challenging
It is.
problem.
And it made me think of that. My first church, I was in a Methodist church. I had just graduated college, and one of the parents was like, my kid, this was in 2007, my kid's always on his phone. And I said, no, okay. So I passed around what I called the cell phone bucket, and I made everybody put their phone in. People, the youth just lost it. They were they couldn't believe that I was doing this, but the parents loved it because they were present. They were in there.
And they were old school.
And they were, exactly. So now it's like, okay, I can see the point of having your phone. But it was just so funny. Like, just to think that wasn't even, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It was like, how dare you?
Yeah. There were folks back then who wouldn't let their kid have a
Absolutely. I didn't have a phone until I was older.
Yeah.
It was like, come on. It's just
But
really,
just like everything else, the church has to adjust.
Absolutely. I often think, and you've been doing a Bible study on Paul, and I always think of his, I became all things to all people. And, how does the church maneuver that?
How does the church take Paul's advice?
Absolutely.
And I don't think we can be all things to all people.
Right.
but we can adjust to trends, which the church has always done.
Absolutely.
And still find a way to be the church. Maybe it won't look like the church of a generation ago, which it never does.
No.
But I kind of see the future being a hybrid continually. And I don't necessarily think it's bad for people to worship online if that's the only way to get them to worship. But I think we have to find a way to continue to grow a present attending worship in addition to offering the online version.
Absolutely. Like if you can't be here one Sunday, hey, check us out online.
Sure.
But we'd love you here every Sunday, but
Sure.
on those ones that you're not able to.
And hopefully, if you make the service and the preaching valuable enough, some people say, let me go in there.
Yeah.
Those people seem to be okay. I like what they do.
Yeah.
And we've seen some new folks coming in.
Yeah, we've seen some new faces and some returning faces, and which is always a great thing for us. And but not that we're ready by any means, but beyond St. Anthony, have you given any thought to your future of what you're going to do?
I'd like to continue preaching, teaching, and being the Eucharistic presence.
Nice.
I hope that the Episcopal Church gives me that opportunity. Like I said, there is a denomination that keeps bothering me, but I don't want to go there. We'll see what the Lord has in store, but I don't think he's done with me yet.
So I don't think so either.
No, I don't think so.
I definitely don't believe that.
No. And if he is and lets me know that, I'll go, okay, I've done some writing that might be a book one day, so maybe I'll start doing that again. Yeah.
There you go.
But I think preaching, teaching, being a sacramental presence is still what the Lord wants me to do.
I love it. Absolutely. I mean, we are, like I said, we're blessed to have you. And like I said, seriously, listen on Sunday. Come to church on Sunday. I mean, not only are you going to get a great sermon,
I just want to tell you, I feel, I'm glad I said to the bishop, all right, I'll listen to them, because I feel blessed to be here. I think this is a great. I've told a couple other priests, hey, Jackson, how's it going? I go, you guys need to apply here when I'm gone. I go, well, I'm old too. I go, I know. I just hope that given COVID and priests aren't really moving.
Okay.
I just hope that the word about this great place gets out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I know some churches are having some problems in the last year, even getting people to apply.
Really?
I mean, San Diego couldn't even get anybody to apply to be a bishop.
Wow.
They ended up with one applicant who used to be the priest here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So we'll see. But under normal times, if this place would be a very, very great location. It's a great place, great people, great facilities. Under normal times, I think there'd be a lot of people wanting to take this. I don't know what's going to happen this year with this one. Yeah. And if they need me to stay next year, I'll stay. Yeah.
We heard it. We heard it here, everybody. Well, wonderful. One of the things one of the questions that we ask all of our guests is to share an on-the-way moment, and this is from your experience, something that might have seen kind of in retrospect that kind of changed the course of your life. And you shared a few, but
that was pretty much that experience, and the experience of being a big shot lawyer. And by the way, I was wrapped up with the political people, and I knew people like Chuck Schumer and Bill Clinton and Hillary, and that wasn't me.
Yeah.
I was, you can be good at something and not glad at it. Oof. And you know that. Yeah. And that's what was going on. So the experience with the Fellowship of Christians and Jews for the Homeless really wasn't a catalyst. It was just sort of something that was inevitable. And what happened with that was something that was inevitable. So it wasn't a light bulb went off. Right. Always there.
I think a lot of people want that light, that big old, that Paul that saw.
Yeah, Paul's on the way to Damascus, and God slapped him in his head, and lightning hit him, and all that stuff. I never had that experience. Never actually had God say, "Hello."
You need to be a priest.
Like Solomon in his dream. Where, it just never happened to me, but his presence is there. Yeah. I'll ask a question, and he doesn't respond, but I get his vibe.
The feeling,
Get his vibe. Yeah.
I like that. Get the vibe.
Yeah, I get his vibe.
I like that, yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of that in the Old Testament. Was it Elijah with the still small voice?
Yes.
God was going to walk by and
Yes.
this, boom, boom.
Yes.
It was that quiet wind.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you again for taking the time.
Well, thank you, and I want to thank you for agreeing to come back as our youth pastor.
Oh man,
You're-
it's been a blessing.
Not only are you good, I like you. And priests and youth pastors don't always connect.
You know what?
know?
It's true, and I just tell you, I was telling
Yeah.
Ty about this. I said,
Yeah.
you know, this is one of the best priests I've ever worked for.
Well, you're-
and I appreciate that.
You're a dynamic guy.
So.
I think if you stay here, you'll build this back the way it should be.
I agree.
But thank you for this
Yeah,
blessing. I
absolutely.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's it for today. If you like the episode, please give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, YouTube, iTunes, or wherever you listen. Be on the lookout, though, for those on-the-way moments of where God shows up and may change the course of your life.
Blessings to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.